Here's Rogue Sounds with Josh Gross and Jeffrey Riley.
Josh Gross, hello and happy March.
Oh, it is a happy March. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. So rare people wish you a happy month, just out of the blue. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
All
Happy
31
March to you
days.
as well.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, looks like a pretty good round of stuff and quite a bit of variety. I notice in this month's offerings.
I like to think there's always a bit of variety. It's like I just try to look for the most interesting stuff. But yeah, this one definitely stretches the spectrum.
So we start with a group called Simple Shapes coming to Local 31 in Ashland, March 2nd. Anything you want to tell us about Simple Shapes before we hear it?
No, let's listen to it. I think you'll get the vibe pretty quick.
This one is called Tortoise Party. So this is the one, Simple Shapes, that when I first heard it, I thought, oh, it's kind of like The Cure with just stronger coffee than usual.
Hey, you want my job? You seem to have it just fine. Yeah, I mean, these guys are just indie rock band out of Portland, and they're another one of these groups that, they kind of had something going before COVID and then kind of went into quarantine and just said, all right, what can we do with this time? And really started experimenting with sounds and, really broadening the palette and making it more interesting. I mean, The Cure is a great reference point because if you strip the Cure-ness away from The Cure at the basic, they just write great pop songs that you could just strum on an acoustic guitar. It's just that then they layered a lot of really interesting sounds and sort of, delivery and style on top of it. And I think these guys are definitely doing something very similar where it's at the core, there's a great, kind of straight ahead song you could play, just strumming on the acoustic guitar at the open mic if you wanted. But if you want to go into the lab for a couple years, because you have to, by government mandate, you can come out with something really fascinating. And what's come out the other end is this band, Simple Shapes. They're pretty cool. I like what they got going on.
So aside from what happened to individual bands and the fact that certainly there was some experimentation and making of music online and stuff, I mean, do you see some real lasting effects on music and genre or anything since because of COVID, rather?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first and most obvious thing is just the economic toll that it took on, venues closed.
Sure.
So people had to move back home, take different jobs. But also, a lot of people changed course and they decided to do something different. They went into whatever their solo project was that they hadn't had time for before, or they kind of got deep into recording and decided maybe they didn't want to gig. I mean, I'm a real big believer that form leads content. And, when you say these are the constraints are now we all have to work, in the studio or, by yourself or online, it changes the way you do things, which changes the music that comes out the other end. I mean, it's hard to really specifically say exactly what it is. I would personally say that it continued to trend towards, smaller groups and solo projects as opposed to, groups that are sort of formed around let's get together in a room and see what happens. It became much more like I came in, I wrote an album, the studio, and then I'm just going to either fill up the band just for the tour or figure out how to do it with an elaborate live setup with Ableton Live and laptops and things. But, that's just some of my observations. It's gone a lot of different directions, but it definitely changed a lot of courses for a lot of people.
Josh Gross is with us once again on the Jefferson Exchange with this month's edition of Rogue Sounds. We move on to the Glenn Miller Orchestra coming to the Cascade Theater in Reading on March 13th, and this one is going to sound familiar to a lot of people. had to go back and check once again. I mean, the Glenn Miller Orchestra has been playing, obviously, without Glenn Miller for better than 75 years now.
Yeah, it's what I call a band of Theseus, where it's, like the ship of Theseus is a classic question in philosophy of there's this old Greek or Roman ship, and they slowly replaced one board after another as they rotted. And eventually there were no original boards left. Is it still the same ship? And I would argue yes, because it's at a certain point it becomes an unofficial part of the ship. And Glenn Miller died in World War II, but the Glenn Miller Orchestra, authorized by his estate, meaning these are the people that, they've said, yeah, we knight thee worthy of being part of the Glenn Miller Orchestra, have been touring since then. And let's be honest, this guy's the GOAT, man. If you don't love Glenn Miller, you're probably dead inside. That music is phenomenal. It's part of the Great American Songbook. Beautiful songs, and they make you want to groove. They're fun. They're lively. They're beautifully composed, and they're just deep in our soul classics that are the core of our culture.
And I remember, this song actually was one that the jazz band in my high school plays. I've known In the Mood for so long myself. By the way, I got the math wrong. Glenn Miller's actually been dead for 80 years this year.
Right. I mean, here's the thing. In the Mood is so iconic that if someone were to say name a swing song, they would just start humming In the Mood. Yeah. But doesn't stop there. You've got Chattanooga Choo Choo, Pennsylvania 5000. Almost all of the hits, they almost all come from Glenn Miller. This guy, is at the forefront of everything, and this is still his band. It's Band of Theseus, but it's still his band, and they're out there still playing the hits that are deserving of your attention. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
It is at the Cascade Theater in Reading on March 13th. Josh Gross is with us once again for another edition of Rogue Sounds here on the Jefferson Exchange. We shift back into more recently composed music anyway with the Bridge City Sinners coming to Johnny B's in Medford on March 20th. And all I can say is stand by for some fun.
You ever feel alone in a crowded room? Alcohol on my bed, better put on a little perfume. I'm not looking for a man who makes me feel like you used to a long time ago. We are out in the streets, got a home next to me, planting seeds where nothing will grow. So pick your poison, why don't you drink it down? Don't you feel better now? Able to face the crowd. Pick your poison, come on, give in to sin. If you just take one more line, then you'll feel home again. Take me home.
It was so tempting to include the whole song. It's not very long, but that's just fun.
It is fun. You can hear that kind of vaudeville carnival kind of influence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, these guys are out of Portland. They're part of there's sort of a movement right now of urban people sort of raised in electric cultures really going back and doing acoustic sort of classic Americana styles, getting deep into that sort of junk box jazz and old jump up and vaudeville and the sort of stuff you'd see. And they're doing really interesting things with it because they're bringing sort of modern cultural sensibilities to that style. And to me, always the most interesting thing is that sort of pairing of old and new. When you take something old and you give it a new twist on it so that you make it your own, and that constant kind of reinvention. And we're sort of in a place right now where a lot of that is happening because people are just you know what? I'm oversaturated by the internet. I just want to play some acoustic guitar and blow in the kazoo and make some wild noise and just, do cosplay like we're in the lower levels of the Titanic in the James Cameron movie, because that's a party.
Yeah, that is a part. That was, come to think of it. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that part of the movie, but yes, absolutely a party. That is Bridge City Sinners coming to Johnny B's in Medford March 20th. We're again talking to Josh Gross with Rogue Sounds here on the Jefferson Exchange. Now, the next band I'm going to be careful in introducing because of the name and because of my confusion about how to pronounce it before I heard the music. So it's metal with ACHI at the end. And I thought, well, Metalachi? Okay, I'm going to assume there's something metal in this. No, it's pronounced Metalachi, and here, Josh Gross, is why.
But that's how it goes. Not too late to learn how to love and forget
Oh, yeah. Ozzy Osbourne, as done by a mariachi band, hence Metalachi. I can't stop smiling when I listen to this.
And that's exactly the way I feel when I listen to it, too. It is so fun. And, you know, when I was talking before about the idea of, like, pairing old and new, to me, this is the most fascinating thing. Like, I've discussed this previously with you. I'm not a big fan of covers, but I love this, which is a reinvention. You know, I love the idea of standards where you take a song and you say, we're going to completely reinvent it in our own style to make it a new artistic statement. And these guys are masters of it, because I think what they've done is they've taken songs that, you know, people who are into mariachi would think, I'm not into that. And then they hear it done this way and they're like, no, I'm super into that. And they take a style of music, mariachi, that people who are into metal go, I'm not into that. And then they hear it like this and they're like, oh my God, I'm super into that. And on the whole time, it's so fun. And it's these guys, it's a 100% completely sincere mariachi tribute to heavy metal music. And their songs are phenomenal. The musicianship is phenomenal. And like you said, you can't stop smiling. Like, there's no way to go see something like this and to just not have a joyous, beautiful, good time, which to me, like, that's what a really good show should be. It should just be like your heart's bursting out of your chest, and you're going to get that at a Metalachi show. It
is genius. Metalachi's coming to the Dip in Reading on March 20th. Our final offering on Rogue Sounds for the month of March is Bitch Disaster, coming to Local 31 in Ashland on March 29th. This is called Funny Things.
Hey man, I got nowhere to go. Don't you know I got nowhere to go? Maybe so, but I gotta go. Let's go! And then I never went to school. Well, I did, but it don't count. Played the pro when I went to school. No, I spent more money than I have. But I think my mama had a football player. Well, I think that. Yeah, I think that. Come on.
I really appreciate the way they continue to layer sounds in there until it's a really a full dance party.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Joan Jett once famously said, or famous to me anyhow, that, you know, really it's being in a band isn't very hard, and she doesn't understand why more people don't do it. And that's true, I think, to some degree. Like, honestly, to just put together a couple songs, whatever, that's not complicated. I think what's interesting is when you go to the next level with it. And what I find compelling about this group, Bitch Disaster, is it's not just the songs. The Bitch Disaster is a concept. They have this whole, like, elaborate concept about a sort of, like, post-apocalyptic Mad Max-style world in which all the cars are fighting for oil, and the Bitch Disaster is the name of the car that's fighting for oil. And all of their songs are sort of concept pieces exploring this. And there's just been on this big, giant, like, national tour there from Cave Junction, or just getting back into the area, where they've been doing this all over the country, and with this really fascinating sort of layered sound exploring this sort of sci-fi post-apocalyptic world, and they have like a whole comic book that goes along with it. And that is like the stuff that Joan Jett wasn't talking about. She's like, it's not that hard to be in a band, but to be in a band like this, where you're adding all of that extra stuff, that takes a little something extra and special. And to me, that's really fascinating, because it's, you know, you don't have to do any of that. You're only doing that because you really, really want to, because it's like an artistic statement you feel you need to make. And it's one that's wholly unique, and I find it fun. And on top of that, like you said, there's great sounds, great layers. It's a big explosion of a dance party, and anyone who goes to see it's going to have a great time.
All right, the schedule that we've talked about here, starting with Simple Shapes, Glenn Miller Orchestra, Bridge City Sinners, Metalachi, and Bitch Disaster, on our website at jeffexchange.org. Josh Gross is the curator for Rogue Sounds, and thanks once again.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Jeffrey. It's always a pleasure.